Hi, Matt.
This is our cold open. I'm reaching for my phone.
What do you mean? Are there like other people here? That'd be weird. Yeah, good evening, everyone. If you're watching now, just kind of giving this a few minutes, just giving people a chance to, one, just see that we went live and start the stream up. But so yeah, we'll just be chilling here for another minute or two. As you can see, I'm Tommy.
I'm Matt. This is us acting natural.
Hmm.
I was all out of beer.
Oh, this is my last one.
I
So
had
so
I
what?
I have cider, but
Ooh.
I don't know. I didn't want to do cider.
So what do you have?
I have Buffalo Trace bourbon that's about half gone.
Ooh,
That's one of my
gnarly.
favorites.
I like it. All right. Check pages, make sure we're actually streaming here. Yeah, looks like we're live. Cool, cool.
I like how it says I have a little notification under the side window that says you're in the show. Everyone can see and hear you. Everyone. All the
All
people.
right, and we're live on YouTube as well. So, hold
Well,
on, I'm
we
just
should
gonna.
probably say now and then that the YouTubers we can't see what they say.
What's that?
We should probably let YouTubers know we can't see what they say.
Well, we might be able to because I've noticed like when Jimmy was doing his show, he was seeing YouTube comments.
Oh,
I mean, I wasn't seeing them like as the guest. So I mean, so you probably won't be able to see them, but I might be able to see them here.
okay. Tommy, friend of YouTubers.
Hmm. Yep. Yeah. I'm not an actual YouTuber. I just play one on YouTube.
Stop making
I
sense.
can't. It's a way of life. All right.
Well,
Well, it's been a couple minutes. Do you want to go and get us kicked off?
hello and welcome to the Humanity, where we do the things with the stuff for the people. I'm Matt.
And I'm Tommy. And tonight, as you maybe realize, it's our world premiere. Woo-hoo. So kind of a premiere, kind of not, because for those who know us, maybe have been following the Facebook page, at least you may notice like it kind of changed names because me and Matt used to have a podcast that we did. I'd say periodically of like a course of a couple years. I think trying to remember when our last episode was. Was it like
It was like a year ago.
I think we record. I think it was yeah. I think it was like September of 22 was the last one, and
It was
so you
probably
may
good.
be
It was good to take a break.
yeah. So you may be asking yourself why such a long break. It's like well, if you listen to the podcast, you know long breaks were kind of our jam. So because life and whatnot and executive dysfunction, you know whatever. But but yeah. So but part also if you were listening, especially the last couple episodes that we were talking about because like just kind of what we really thought of the show, what we were wanting to do with it. Because okay, so the name of the podcast was Three Beer Gospel. We started it as basically a like a Christian deconstruction podcast, which was
Because
going
there
great
weren't enough.
until what's that?
There weren't enough.
I know, especially from like two white guys who like drank beer while they were recording, and
I mean, we have opinions and people need to know.
I mean, but we did swear a lot, so that was unique. So
Eh,
yeah, so like I said, so yeah, it was going great until the fourth episode when we both realized, oh, I don't think we're Christian anymore. And then I think by episode five we were both atheists. We're like, so, but then we just kept soldiering on for like another like three or four episodes, which I mean it was good. I enjoyed it, but we're
yeah,
like, we kind of got to the point where like, does having gospel in the name really make sense anymore? Because if we're trying to like attract people to give them to listen, like people who are looking for podcasts with gospel in the name aren't going to enjoy this. but people who would enjoy this might not be looking for a podcast with gospel in the name. So, and then we were actually going to start it up again about a year ago. We had plans, but then I had some life stuff come up that I may or may not get into later. But so
Yeah,
that basically just put like almost my entire last year on hold for so many things. But
it was neat.
still is actually. But yeah. Anyway, like I said, may or may not get into that later. But for anyone following this who knows, friend of mine, Derek Day, formerly of, I got to know him through when he was on a podcast called Heretic Happy Hour. Now he does his own show, like it's called Forward Live. He does a live stream with Aaron Tomlinson called Freeology Fridays. So we got connected, got to know each other. He actually interviewed me. He had another show he was doing last year or a year ago or whatever. And I was actually talking with him, talking about, hey, we used to have a podcast with my friend Matt. We're thinking of trying to get that started up. It's something we're actually thinking of doing, like a live stream like this. Because like I was the one doing like all the like recording setup and editing, and I was like, I mean, the nice thing about our show, like with the format, it was like very casual. Like, so I really didn't need to do any editing unless like we'd had too much to drink and started mentioning people by names that we weren't sure wanted to mention, or or believe it or not, for those who listen, there actually were some like jokes and things that we said that we cut out. It was like that might be a little too inappropriate. More inappropriate than doing things like calling like the Holy Spirit like God's ghost penis, stuff like that. So if you thought,
I forgot that happened.
So just imagine what we ended up cutting out. So
yeah, the stuff that got cut out, and it may end up staying in this if that ever happens here.
Yeah,
probably not the first episode.
We'll see.
Yeah, it was things where like, even people that knew us well would probably be like, that was a little far. I mean, we knew what we were doing with that, and that was a little far.
Yeah.
But people who don't know us, they'd be like, they're a bunch of mean assholes.
No, just very inebriated and opinionated, which is the best combination ever. So, yeah, so I was talking with Derek. It was like, if we do a live stream, then that's great. We literally like it's like no setup other than if I have like a mic to plug in or whatever. But yeah, just stream it and it's done. But so he actually helped us out with setting up this live stream. So first of all, huge shout out to Derek Day. Hey, what's up, Jimmy? Speaking of other guys to shout out, see Jimmy Ligon in the chat there. He's another person who has a show on Thursday evenings called Unreligious that I'm sort of like quasi unofficial part-time co-host with him on. So good to see you, Jimmy. Thanks for showing up. So yeah, so we were talking with Derek. He like helped us get set up with this, and we're like, all right, this could be a thing, and now it's a thing. So, but you may have noticed we did change the name. So I don't even remember how we came up with this, but
I don't know. It took a while. There were like no ideas, and then only ideas we didn't like, and then
yeah, and then there was another idea that I think Trevor Noah ended up starting a podcast with the same name.
Yeah,
but
yeah, we're like, would that be good for us? Because people would find us accidentally, or would that just make us look like posers? Or
and then they'd be looking for Trevor Noah and find us and get disappointed. But
like that,
yeah. So, but I also figured like the humanity. It's like if the problem is because like the problem was before like our views changed, so it made the title no longer relevant. So just as long as we don't stop being human, this title's good.
I think we're set.
Yeah. Plus, I also like for those familiar with the Dark Souls series, like there's like humanity is like a big thing in those video games, which I'm currently playing through. So
nice.
I enjoyed that. Yeah. It allows you to like kindle bonfires and unhollow and summon people. It's pretty sweet. But speaking of which, summoning people, that's something else we're able to do now. It's like we actually have plans next week. We'll have our very first guest, a friend of mine and Matt's that we've been like even going back to our days at the podcast. He was like one of our very first like listeners. I mean, not like I said, we've been friends with this guy since mid 2000s, I think, and we've been wanting to have him on like the show for so long. So finally, next week, our good buddy Eric Barnes will be joining us. So stay tuned for that. Um, but yeah, so here we are. So I figured tonight would be not sure about how long to go tonight. We're thinking like maybe most episodes are probably aiming for about an hour, but tonight, it's just kind of meant to be just a bit of an intro, kind of get to know us kind of thing. So one of the first things we wanted to do is just kind of give um, backgrounds. Like I said, we had been like Christian, we're deconstructing, lost our faith, became atheist or whatever it is we are now.
We lost our
Um,
faith and found our atheism.
it's like, oh, there it was. Wondered,
Found it.
but so what? So first of all, just kind of briefly give like backgrounds. If you want the longer version, like I said, the podcast Three Beer Gospel is still up on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google, all the other major places people get your podcasts. Like what was supposed to, we'll see how this quote unquote casual intro episode goes, because when we did it for the podcast, we oh, this would just be a quick intro, and we ended up recording for 4 hours, and I managed to edit it down to just two. So if you want the longer version, you can check out the podcast. I'll probably leave a link to it or something in the comments after the stream. But yeah, the episode 0 origins, if you want the
Yeah.
longer version. But yeah,
That
so
was
tonight,
that was a very special Oktoberfest edition.
yes, during COVID, we were just hanging out on my back deck.
Oh, that was during COVID. That seems
Yeah,
like forever ago.
yeah, it was. Yeah, that was September of. Yeah, it was September of 2020 when we recorded it, but we didn't actually release it till the following March because we're like, let's wait till we record another episode so we don't just like release it and then do nothing for months. So we just did nothing for months and then finally recorded again. So, but yeah, that was a fun evening. If you want to hear what I sound like when I am just completely wasted because Matt was trying to liquefy my liver.
Well, okay, we did split the very high alcohol ones, but they were still like 14%.
Yeah, I think the weakest thing we drank that night was around like 9%.
Well, no, we did have an actual Oktoberfest, didn't we?
Well, that's what we start. That was kind of like our pregame.
Yeah.
But during the show. But anyway, so also expect a lot of that because ADHD, and I'd probably have several other undiagnosed neurodivergencies. So if there's anyone in the audience who is like a professional like psychologist or knows that stuff, if you want to let me know what I have, that would be appreciated. Oh yeah, speaking of what I have, so I asked you what you're drinking. What cider are you drinking tonight?
Oh, fart. It was.
Oh, that's an interesting one. Is it Irish?
That would be. Never mind. I got an idea for a mixed drink with some kind of cider and Irish whiskey, and I'm not sure what else. And maybe we call it "Oh Fart." O apostrophe fart.
Because of course.
Yeah. I don't know. It was a seasonal. It was extra roasty. It had cinnamon and vanilla in it, but not just a little. It wasn't like so festive in your face. It was like, yeah, cinnamon.
Yeah, just assaulting you with seasonal spices. Yeah.
You will have a Merry Christmas.
And like it. So, yeah, so I'm drinking. So I'm like that. I totally am like that craft beard guy with the beard. Like IPAs are my favorite. I make no apologies, no shame there. But tonight.
Oh yeah, sorry about that. I almost took your tangent and ran with it.
No, feel free to run with it in a second. But yeah, it's one of my favorite breweries, Stone Fear Movie Lions, which sounds like a weird name, but it's actually a really cool concept behind it. I don't know if you've ever heard of something called What Three Words? So it's this thing that I don't know if it's still like in use, but I thought this was like such an awesome idea. It's like someone developed, they basically divided up the entire world map into like 3 meter by 3 meter grids. And they gave each grid a name just consisting of three random words. Part of it being so they could give people who are just in like just extremely remote areas of the world or even like homeless people, basically everyone has an address. Say you can find me here. Or if you're just trying to meet someone somewhere, it's like, oh, we're meeting like if it's like at a spot in a park or something, or like, where are you? And you can go, oh, I'm at Ruby Tango Shoelace or whatever, I mean, of course, nowadays, I guess just most people can just use the GPS on their phones. But like I said, for the people who don't have the technology, they can say, hey, homeless guy, your little tent here in Tent City is at this 3 words, or I don't know, or, you know, rural people out in the middle of nowhere, India or Nigeria or whatever. Like basically everywhere it can have a place. So anyway, that was a bit of a rant, but yeah, I just thought that was a really cool concept. So that's what I'm
Yeah,
drinking. So
I really like IPAs, but there are so many, and a lot of them have gotten so similar to each other. I like them when there's like a variation and something unique about it.
mhm.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah, this one's a hazy one, but but what I love about this one, it's a double IPA, and as you notice, like in a tall boy, but the 6 packs of this are only like 12 or 13 bucks.
of Tall Boys,
Yeah,
that's
which
stupid
is
good.
insane. Yeah, a double IPA, tall boys, 8.5% for like under 15 bucks for a 6 pack, which is especially from Stone, like that's insane. So that's why I
Yeah.
get them a lot, and they're just really good. So yeah. So what were you going to say about a tangent or something about
Oh no,
ABA?
I was just gonna my mojo behind the tangent is gone.
Yeah,
I don't know. I was gonna probably say too much about not liking IPAs
yeah.
as much anymore. Everybody's like, "Oh, we made an IPA too, and it's hazy. Aren't hazy IPAs so unique?" And it's like, no, everybody makes one.
Yeah, like literally. But yeah, but I think I just kind of zeroed in on them because like for a while, which we'll probably get to this part later, but there was a significant chunk of the past couple of years where
Oh
I
yeah.
had to be more selective with my drinking. So that's kind of what I honed in on. But all right, so I figure so all that to say, um, figure one of the best ways to begin this now that we're like almost 20 minutes in. Again, get used to that too, folks. Um,
It's a
just
spastic slow roll.
mhm. That is a perfect way to describe it. I like it. So, but I thought it'd be good if we just kind of, for those of you who don't know us very well, or even people who do but find our lives amusing and entertaining, we just
Because
give some.
sometimes we don't, so it would be nice if somebody else did.
Yeah, I've been told by several people that they think of me as amusing. So yeah, just thought like just give like start with like just try to be brief like background of like our lives, particularly when it like as it pertains to like faith background, the deconstruction to no longer having faith to wherever we're at now. So we'll just kind of kick it off with you, Matt, if you just want to give us kind of the
Okay.
whatever how
Yeah.
many thousand feet view that saying is.
That always confuses me when people say that. Yeah, so I'm Matt,
Because if we're
and
looking at you from 50,000 feet, we can't see you.
it's just that.
Yeah. So just don't talk for 5 minutes, and that's the.
Just move around real slowly. uh, yeah, so my name's Matt, and uh, you'll see me fidget a lot or do weird things with my face, maybe.
Mhm. Me
Because
too.
I have ADHD and self-diagnosed autistic, which is a thing. It's still legit.
Hmm.
uh, so yeah, I
Yes.
may fidget or do weird things. So
Yeah, they say like with autism, self-diagnosis is usually incredibly accurate. So
yeah, because it's not something like you want to be. It's not.
yeah,
It's not like
that's why. I'm kind of suspect I'm somewhere on there as well. But yeah,
It's likely. I mean, we get along
thank,
well.
yeah. Thank you.
But maybe the least autistic out of your brothers.
That could be
Yeah.
true.
Now I'm telling Tommy's story. Yeah. So let's see. I grew up Catholic, not really religious. Like I think we went sporadically on Sundays. Um, big extended family, like very German Catholic. Uh, wasn't really a thing for me exactly. I was confused by the whole thing. It didn't make a lot of sense. But I liked stained glass windows and stuff.
Mm,
So
yep, those are quality.
I ended up getting more into Christianity because of a girlfriend. Basically, it was like the only way I could see her for more time on Sunday,
Nice.
and then that was kind of a pattern for a lot of further developments and getting more involved in Christianity was because I was interested in some girl, or I was going out with her already, um, and I ended up doing things like I did like praise and worship dance where I was the only dude there.
Oh,
That started because of a girl, and then I stayed because of the Lord, and then but also because of the girl, and then just because of the Lord. And I got more into like spiritual warfare kind of stuff, and that really made sense to me because I kind of felt like I was connecting to something, something bigger than me. Um, I'm getting nervous. My throat just went. Um,
that's all right. You're doing fine.
yeah, I'm not used to the live thing. Anywho, I got involved in a like spiritual warfare thing at a thing called Man Camp, which was a big deal, and praying out the demons, healing, and uh, that was a really big deal for me for several years. Um, got Tommy involved in that,
Yes, thank you.
and at the time it was good
I
time.
mean, yeah, I feel like that's going to be a big theme as we're telling our stories. It's like it seemed like a good idea at the time.
Oh yeah, yeah. It met a need, and it was helpful for certain things. I came out of my shell a lot more, got more comfortable talking to people. Found out later a big part of the being more comfortable talking to people was probably because it was the prayer tent thing at Man Camp was a very structured social interaction.
Mm,
Had a
mm.
framework and something to fall back on, like if it got weird, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, a very structured way to just be led by the Spirit wherever it
Yeah,
takes you. Yeah, go wherever the Spirit takes you, where we want you to go, kind of thing.
yeah, yeah. And if it takes you somewhere spooky or crazy, if it's the right kind of spooky and crazy, it's okay.
Yeah,
Uh,
DVD.
so that was a big deal for I don't know, a handful of years. Then my wife ended up working for that church um, that that was put on by mega church here in Cincinnati. Probably one of the two the mega churches in Cincinnati. One of the two chains.
Yeah,
Um, that was
don't
helpful.
worry, they'll come up later.
Yeah, yeah. It just feels weird to say it right now. What it was.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah.
Um, so that was really helpful for a little while. The insurance was awesome, and that was when we were getting my daughter diagnosed with her very rare genetic issues. Saved us just a shit ton of money, and saved us from debt. And it was good for a minute until my wife's boss got abusive emotionally and uh, just not a mentally well person, and it played out in such a way where Aaron ended up getting let go. Aaron is my wife's name, um, and that was like right around the time that I was already starting to kind of deconstruct, and then when that all happened, yeah, for sure, yikes, Jimmy.
Hmm.
um,
Yeah.
That was rough because she was going through that stuff. I was watching, and we needed the money. And oh, there's my wife too. She's
Hey, Aaron.
oh, I'm uncomfortable now. In the past, she was not listening. No, it was fun. She says, um, yeah, it was good times. So we went through all that, and it was just heinous because like we were getting treated worse than we would at like a Fortune 500 company. It was just like you were part of the family until it was not beneficial for the machine, and it was. So that started a whole like examination of. Um, I still was on board with Christianity, but I was like, it ain't this, or at least it's not that experience. So what is it really? Um, and we kind of stopped going there after a minute. We still went there after she was let go, because I don't know, like you do,
Yeah.
when you think that it's not the whole organization or the whole idea, it's just those people.
Yeah.
Um, and I still think it was more of those people than the whole institution, the whole machine, but still the machine's broken.
Like, are you sure it was just those people? They only did it like 3 more times.
Oh, sure. And that boss still works there and all that. Um, anyway, I want the best thing for all the people who still work there. It may not be with them still doing what they're doing. Um,
Yep. Yep.
so I got probably more into the core of what my faith was based on, like the Bible and just history and all that kind of stuff. And the more I examined it, uh, the more I learned. It was really interesting, and I still enjoy all that. But the more I realized that I was told a lot of things by people on a stage that weren't true. Um, the so-called reasons for believing certain things weren't what they said they were, or didn't exist. And so then I started looking. The only people who were being honest, like consistently about uh, the history of things and where the Bible actually came from and who actually wrote it, what it really says, and different theologies around all that. The only people who were really talking about that were either atheists, people who had deconverted, or people who were in the middle of deconstructing. I couldn't really go to any purely Christian sources to find out all this information because they weren't talking about it because it was problematic. And the more I examined it, the more I realized that there wasn't anything there, at least for the religion of Christianity. And then I came to the conclusion that uh, at best it's the Bible and just the theologies around that are they came from metaphors to explain human experiences of the unknown. And I feel like initially they were meant to be metaphors. They were meant to be stories to make emotional and artistic sense of gut feelings and emotions related to just living in the universe, in the world. And then when people started to believe their stories were facts, that's when it became and still becomes a problem. um so yeah, so where
Yeah.
I'm now, I would say that like I don't like labels personally, and I'm definitely atheistic. uh the weird thing is I've talked to people who are Christians and people who are atheists, and like both groups would say I belong to their group. When like I was talking to somebody at the last man camp we were at about my problems with like the whole like anti-homosexuality or anti-LGBTQ, and how that was the reason why I wasn't allowed to participate anymore, is because I was affirming of LGBTQ people. Not that the question didn't come up that whether or not I followed Jesus anymore, which was weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was talking to me like he was under the assumption that I was still a believer. I am an individual, Jimmy.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Just one of you. Some people might say that's a good thing or not. I don't know.
No, yeah, so like I'm comfortable not knowing the answer, and I'm kind of comfortable. I see the appeal and the what the faith stories can do for people. I don't think it's all bad. I do think what we've seen in organized religion is the sole applications of it are harmful to people.
Hmm.
Because if you're going to save the institution or you're going to perpetuate the religion, it's going to have to be at the expense of people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The religion can't change, so the people who are changing need to leave.
Oh, hey, Sarah. Welcome in. Yeah.
What did we used to call her? Pum Pum?
Yeah. Based on her maiden name. But yeah, another friend of ours going way back to the old college days. So, but yeah, what she says, here, I can show her comment. Let's see.
Oh, neat. I didn't realize you could do that.
Yeah, so that's a devastating thing to have somebody say. It shows how deeply committed people are to hating others. Like, yeah, unfortunately, that's
Yeah. I
yeah,
I think it I think it's at the expense of other people because it does something good for them. And I think it really has to do with protecting what they see as their identity in their faith.
hmm
Because the whole slippery slope thing, if one thing is wrong, maybe the whole thing is wrong. Well, that's not how information works. But
yeah.
apparently, it's not for people think the Bible works.
Well, the Bible's special, so it
Yeah.
works in way. The Bible, it works in ways that don't work. And some Christians will say things like that completely unironically. So,
I'm stuck on when you put that comment up on the screen. Looked like we were a news show. I was like, this
like
just in.
breaking news. People give a shit what we're talking about and want to.
It's kind of breaking news.
I know. I'm not used to this. But yeah, but yeah, Sarah says she just got on. It's like it's all right. Fortunately, you can. We're streaming live now, but this will still be available on Facebook page and on YouTube. So just and now I'm in my content creator voice mode now. So
It'll
check us
be
out on YouTube. Search for us under the Humanity. I warn you because I just tried to look for the Humanity when I was checking the stream on my phone, and if you just type in the Humanity to YouTube, so many things that are not us come up. So I'll probably put a link to it in the chat or on the Facebook page. So, but yeah. Anyway,
uh,
all that to say, don't worry, you didn't miss much, but what you did miss, you can catch up on. So,
yeah. So back to me.
yay.
Where I am now. My dad passed away like a little over a year ago.
Yeah.
I was not a believer when that happened. Um, Fortunately, I had kind of addressed how I thought I would react to somebody passing away. Now that I wasn't, uh, when I don't think we can say there's a heaven. Like there's no way to prove it unless you're there. But then if you come back, you can't prove it to people here because maybe you just had like a brain thing that happened. So
hmm
I I don't think there's any way to know. I like the idea. Um, Thanks, Jimmy. I like the idea of there being a heaven and seeing my dad after I die. But I don't really want to. I don't want to have false hope. I don't want to hang on to something. I have my like mental health hang on something that might not be true. Uh, so it will be a very pleasant surprise. Um, and I think it's more important that like I can see my dad in my head right now. Like waiting to see him and talk to him till after I'm dead. that doesn't seem necessary because I have a full like my full concept of my dad in my head right now. Um, and I'm reconciling the whole thing of like it doesn't feel like my dad's gone.
Yeah.
Which has made grieving a problem. And I don't know if my brain's in denial or
Yeah.
or if that's a spiritual thing or if but I'm okay with it. Like I'm okay that it feels that way. In a way, my dad feels more present now than he did when he was alive. And so that's a weird thing.
Yeah.
And
What do you think of that? Do you see that as like kind of positive or negative, or do you see that either way? Or
I don't know.
Is it just a thing that's
I think it's just a thing. I have a hard time labeling things as definitely good or definitely bad because it's all relative to something else. So Sarah asked what my dad's views were on faith. He died. My mom said I wasn't there. He died saying Jesus' name. So he was a Christian. He couldn't go to church. I think he was probably autistic also, definitely ADHD. He couldn't go to church and be around crowds. So it was just, he couldn't stand it. I get it. Going to a mega church it took a lot out of my family. Anyway, yeah, so he was a believer. I'm pretty sure he thought he had to follow Jesus, believe in Jesus to go to heaven. I think that kind of sucks to feel like that's how it is. But it gave him, my mom said he was very much at peace when he went. So it gave him a lot of peace.
Yeah, that's good.
And it wasn't like he felt like he needed to believe out of fear, at least in that moment. That wasn't how it was portrayed to me by my mom. He accepted it, and he actually didn't. I won't get into that right now. This is the part I was going to talk about is a little much for an intro episode. We'll definitely get to this topic more later.
Yeah, because there's something Sarah said earlier in a comment I definitely want to get to later about sharing with Christian friends, like saying like, well, what you're saying about it's like, I'm just saying what I believe, not telling you what to believe or telling you what is, But yeah, like I said, I definitely want to get to that. We'll get to her comment later, but yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's a good idea to say right now, like I don't hate Christianity. Like I'm not mad at the Bible or anything. I'm mad at certain people. I think there are definitely ways of applying what's in there. If you apply it all as if it's all literally true, the cognitive dissonance involved in that and the level of at least manipulation and emotional abuse that you have to level at people is I'm mad at that.
Yeah.
And I have a problem with that. So, but no, I'm not like if somebody's a Christian and I'm not going to try to talk somebody out of believing. If I see something about their belief that is harming them, and I can be like, look, this research says that if you think this about yourself, it's bad for you. Or if you treat people in this way, it is bad for them. The reason why you're doing it doesn't matter. What you're doing is bad.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and, since we're talking about it, I'll just go ahead and show Sarah's comment from earlier that I want to talk about. So like, all right, so when I was unraveling the lie of hell, thank you for calling it a lie. I think more people need to realize that. I had a close Christian friend get really mad at me and say, then are you saying everything is crap? Which wasn't what I was saying at the time, but I'd say it now. Which I'd probably, now I'd say, yes, I'm saying it's crap. Like there was like someone I was having a conversation with a good friend, but he was a Christian who was telling me, and he wasn't even necessarily saying this like as an attack or anything, but just kind of pointing out how it seemed like I was like really shitting on religion or something. I was like, I'm not shitting on religion. I'm just pointing out the shit that's already there.
Yeah.
Like me shitting on it would be completely redundant. at this point.
And
But yeah, but
I wouldn't say it's all. I don't know. It depends like what you're trying to do with it, if it's crap or not. Because
yeah,
the post believing, like looking at the Gospels and how well they're written and how many different uh, literary things,
hmm
like different literary traditions that are brought into it, the different mythologies that are all blended together in this kind of like seamless story. Like
hmm
it's some of them. I haven't gone through all of them yet, looking at them this way, but Mark is extremely well written and very interesting to me, and all the layers in there. Um, I think it's really interesting, but using it as a rule book for your life is crap.
yeah,
uh, because it contradictions and so much of it isn't written as a rule.
hmm yeah.
um,
We could definitely do like an entire series on
yeah,
just thoughts on the Bible. Like neither of us, like just full disclosure, like neither of us are like professional like biblical scholars or anything like that. We're just people who can read, and
we are nerds and
yeah,
dorks.
that is very true. Very
So
true.
there's that.
Yeah. But yeah. So sorry. Back to
We
you.
should get on to yours. So
Oh,
that's kind of
right.
where I am right now. It's just um, Aaron and I are in relatively similar places. Um, she wouldn't call herself atheistic, but definitely she says no way. Uh,
Whether you like it or not, Aaron. Yeah.
yeah. So I think we're at least not at odds with each other on real fundamental things. Uh, there are definitely we had a conversation earlier. There are definitely still things that we're not thinking the same thing about,
hmm Yeah,
or
because you're
have the
people.
same level of comfort with what we're thinking.
Mhm.
Oh, she was saying
Oh,
no way to the nerds and dorks comment.
well, thank you for not think
No,
or
there's a sarcastic crying face.
I was choosing to ignore that part. Not now. I'm
uh,
gonna actual cry. Damn it.
yeah, so fortunately, it's not like a big source of conflict for us ongoing.
Hmm.
Um,
Well, that's good.
yeah, and I'm probably gonna unpack it more over the course of the weeks because it's just kind of exploring what what may be.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think Aaron put it well here. Like, just embrace it. That's the best way, or it's best that way. Yes, I had the word "that" in there somewhere.
I
I can
think that's
read.
a picture of my daughter in her Facebook thing.
Ooh, hello, Matt's daughter. Yeah. Let's see. Here, let's see what Sarah has to say here. We were in a culture where we were told we were literally supposed to read the Bible every single day and take every word as God inspired, etc.
Whatever the fuck that means.
There's a lot to process here. Like, absolutely. Unfortunately, this is going to be a weekly show, so we'll have plenty of time to process that shit. So,
Or unprocess it. There's gonna be a lot of
yes, yeah. Or the way I like to put it, like when I'm because people who follow me like on Facebook or whatever now say I post a lot, especially over the past couple of years. I've been externally processing.
that didn't cause any problems.
No. So I started. You also may have noticed I started a secondary page for the more extreme examples, but for certain people. But but what was I saying?
Now I'm just singing certain people in my head.
Oh yeah. So but people would say, oh, it seems like you're really wrestling with a lot of things here. I put it's like it's not so much that I'm wrestling with things. I'm more wrestling away from things. Is kind of how I look at it. But, oh, thank you, Emily. Loves my Facebook apparently. So yeah, Emily's cool. Fine. I'm glad we finally like someone I've kind of known at least online or kind of vaguely known for a few years. Finally, actually were able to hang out this past year. So all right, Jimmy will have to finish later. But oh, thanks, Jimmy. All right, take it easy. Yeah.
Yeah,
Catch
thank
you
you.
later, man. Um, so now that Jimmy's gone, I'll talk about me. I don't know why that's a thing, but it was in my head, so you're welcome. So I feel like between the two of us, we kind of hit like most of the like American atheist, like former Christian tropes. Like you're the former
Yeah.
Catholic. Me, I'm the former fundamentalist Baptist.
What?
Like, stop me if you've heard this story 5 million times.
Like, no,
But
I gotta say, like, former Catholic, and then non-denominational, and then evangelical,
yeah,
which was a closet fundamentalist church.
yeah, that's one of my favorite memes I saw. Like these two people like just like waving at each other, like saying hi, and one says like, "Hi, I'm hi, I'm non-denominational." The other person says, "Oh, hi, lying Baptist, I'm Lutheran." That's one of the truest things I've ever seen.
Yeah.
But uh, but anyway, so speaking of Baptist, this guy, um, yeah. So let's see, I'm 40 now, soon to be 41 later this month. Um,
We need
yeah,
to have a redo on your 40th because we couldn't do it because you couldn't drink very much.
yes. Actually, I've already been in conversations with Richard
Cool.
about that as
Cool.
well. So, and by in conversation, I meant he said, "Hey, we should do something for your birthday," and I said, "Okay." And that's where we're at. So,
Those were
anyway, speaking of Richard, speaking of Richard and the former 3BG podcast, I need to find. I still have. He made like a wood carving of the logo
yeah.
for our podcast, which is one of the coolest things that like any person has ever done in the history of all time ever. So yeah, I'll find
And then
that.
we immediately used it as a coaster.
Yes. Well, he gave it to us at a bar.
Yeah.
So
And it was like very thick coaster material.
yeah, it was like quality stuff, and it's a very good coaster. But I might have to use that during the show, or I might like put that up in the background or something. So like that's so
Yeah, that was
speaking of me, I'm a classic overthinker. So like not only have I gone through like five different possibilities of like where in my house do I want to set up, but like so I settled on here, but like oh I got this space behind me. What do I want to put? So like I got this little plant that I got at IKEA sitting there. I was like, what? So I'm thinking maybe like every week if I can think of something, like have something different. I think it would probably. I just need. I think what I don't know why, but in my head this is such a great and hilarious idea. But somehow just get like a little cardboard cutout of Matt, just like put it right there. I don't know why, but that was in my head. And
like I'm
again,
selling a product.
or you're just like pointing at me and laughing, like. But But anyway, so yeah, so I grew up Baptist. Actually, for the first 4 years of my life, I was a Presbyterian in the morning and a Baptist in the evening on Sundays because my parents came from two different faith backgrounds. Well, two different kinds of Christian backgrounds. So, like, yeah, my dad was Presbyterian, my mom was Baptist. So they compromised, and now they're Baptist. The way that goes. So so yeah, all the stuff. Like one of my favorite things about the Baptist church I went to, because anyone who knows anything about Christian denominations, like not only are there like thousands of them, but half of them are just different types of Baptist. So if anyone's curious, my particular kind of Baptist, and I shit you not, this was the actual official name, was Regular Baptist.
Just the regular ones.
It was part of this organization called GARB, GARB, which I think stood for Grand Association of Regular Baptists. And that's what we were. But yeah, it was just like your basic fundamentalist, like Calvinist, scriptural inerrancy, biblical literacy, like literalism, substitutionary atonement, eternal conscious torment in hell for not being a believer, all that stuff. Baptism, but not as a baby, because fuck that Lutheran bullshit. But, um, but yeah, So apparently, I prayed the prayer of salvation at the age of 4 because 4-year-olds can comprehend stuff like that, right? I mean, I know I was smart, but like, come on, let's. Then I think I got baptized at age 6, so I don't know what would have happened if I would have died in that like intermediary period. I don't know where I would have gone or where other people would have thought I would have gone. Um, but yeah, basically stayed that way vast majority of like all the way growing up until I got to college. Even like I got to college, ended up going to what was a little more liberal, progressive-ish, evangelical like church. I mean, I still considered myself very fundamentalist, so like a lot of Sundays I would just be sitting there just like angry, like, well, that's bullshit, but I wouldn't say anything because I hate confrontation. But so I just kept going there. But eventually started I did start. I mean, you might say that's maybe where my deconstruction maybe technically started because I remember like it was going to that church, like different things, like hearing people say things like, "Oh, actually, like stories like the creation story when they were written, if you actually look in the context and the way like the Jewish people wrote stuff, that wasn't even meant to be taken literally." I'm like, "What?" But as soon as I heard that, I just like immediately accepted it. It's almost like it's something like my brain
Yeah.
like without me knowing knew the whole time this can't be right, but I feel like I have to believe it anyway because I'm a Christian. So then hearing another Christian say, "Oh, you don't actually have to look at it that way," it's like, "Oh, thank God," you know. But so that was just like well, the first thing, like, "Oh, well, what else?" And so at that point, like there wasn't really too much else that I was deconstructing. That the big shift for me at that point was more going from a more like internal, personal, my personal salvation, my personal relationship with Jesus, my personal holiness, to a bit more of an outward focus, which I appreciate. At the time that made me like, oh, there's ways of love. Oh, you mean there's ways of loving other people other than just telling them they need Jesus? Like they actually need like food and stuff too. Weird, you know so that was cool. Even though at the time, like I said, I thought it was all like a bunch of like liberal social justice warrior bullshit. Looking back, it was good for me to kind of break me out of like that mindset I was in. So yeah, I went there for several years until finally, I guess the liberal whatever our own personal Jesus. Yes,
Dum, dum,
just like
dum,
Depeche Mode
dum,
promised
dum,
us. Yeah,
dum.
pick up the receiver; he will make you a believer. So
But I gotta say, it was weird that you were there. And you know what was even weirder
thank you.
was that your brother was there in
Yeah,
the next room, just hanging out to like go
yeah.
get food with us or other
Yeah, my older
people.
brother, who's like more and still is like more conservative than I am or ever was, but it's like he was living in the area, like he had to go to church somewhere. It's like, well, this is where my brother and my friends go, so he's yeah. I mean, he was there. He ticked the box, But anyway, so that was there for a while, and then when we left there, ended up going to this mega church that we've been referencing, where Matt and his wife were going to at the time. This was before she worked there, but they were both like going there.
Yeah.
And again, for people in the Cincinnati area, something like big mega church here, you probably know what I'm talking about. But like, yes, Sarah, Ed, that's my brother who she's talking about. Yeah. But yeah, this mega church, it was much more probably what this church had that I had not really had before in any other church. Was you might call a more like charismatic like angle to it, because I would say for my entire Christian life, like I was like strong Christian. Like there was, except for this one part, probably in my mid 20s, I did have this. Well, while going to this church we were talking about, there was a college that was more like social justicey or whatever. I did have in my mid 20s probably one very brief moment of, do I actually believe this? And honestly, it was because looking at myself in the mirror in the bathroom, going, why do I have nipples? Like given the whole like intelligent design, God made us exactly how male and female are different things. Like, why do I have nipples? And I'm like, what's going anyway? So But I got it. But I got over that real
You
quick
had
because I
mental
realized
confusion.
it is confusing. But it's like I say, if God had really meant for like men to be able to transition to a different gender, he would have given us nipples. So, ooh. So
There
Sarah
might
says
be
there are times when males have nursed babies. That's another thing that I want to talk about. Is this like a whole? This could be a whole topic, obviously, but the whole like transgender thing and like how people are like, there's only two genders and like it's sex is binary. It's like it's really not at all.
if you're only
It's
basing it on genitals, kind of, but
yeah,
not
even
really.
then,
Yeah.
yeah. But and again, well, this will be a whole other episode probably. But what I learned is gender is bimodal, but not binary. Look it
There you
up.
go.
Yeah, look up.
Look at you with your
I
words.
highly recommend. There's a video by this guy named Forrest Valkai on YouTube where he talks about like he's a biologist, so he actually talks about like sex and gender and stuff like from a biological like point of view. And he said like, no, it really is complicated. Like in order to really know where exactly you fall on the whole male female spectrum thing, like for sure, like you essentially just have to have your entire genome sequenced, among other things. Like which no one does. So
Yeah, it's like hormone levels in your brain and your body, and like
yeah, it's
thinking not even just that, like thinking patterns also. Yeah.
mhm. Yeah, it's a whole thing. But anyway, so yeah, so now going to this like mega church, more charismatic because I would say like my whole life my Christian faith was like very like intellectual, very cerebral. Like you would hear phrases like, okay, if you want to hear from God, read your Bible. If you want to hear God speak to you audibly, then read it out loud. Kind of thing. I know, but so but it's like but I would always see these people having these experiences. People say, "Oh, I feel like spirit," or "I feel Jesus's presence with me." Or I was like, I never like had any of that. But then finally going to this mega church where Matt was going, I was like, that's a lot. That was like a very big thing. There was actually like experiencing God, experiencing the Spirit. Things like people giving like prophecy and like healing prayers. He was talking about man camp, which is another thing he dragged me into.
Hey, we both liked it for a little bit.
We did. That, like I said, that's always like been like a running gag for me. Is like in so many areas in life, I'm like, it's Matt's fault that I'm here. But but at the time, I loved it. I mean, I still love the where we're going together. But yeah. So uh, what I love about the way things worked out is when I finally got to the point where I essentially had been wanting to get to my entire life in my Christian faith. It was at that point where the serious deconstruction started.
Yeah,
Again, mostly because of this guy. He's like,
I
"Hey, have
blame,
you
I
read
blame Greg
Richard
Boyd.
Rohr? He's cool." I'm
Oh yeah,
like,
that guy too. Yeah,
sorry, who did you say?
Greg Boyd and Richard Rohr. Yeah.
Yeah. Boyd is probably where it really started with his whole like, if people are interested, they can look him up. Things like his like what he called the cross-centered hermeneutic, open theism. He was like one of the first people who explained like I think he was like maybe an annihilationist instead of eternal conscious torment as far as when it comes to
Uh,
hell. I don't really remember where he was at, but he was one of the first people who talked about
yeah,
atonement theories other than just penal substitution. He was more like a Christus Victor,
yeah, that's what he was. Yeah,
yeah, little of that. So I was like, so again, part of it's like, oh, there are like good Christians who believe things that aren't like as horrible sounding as the things that I like
yeah, and
growing
I
up
don't think we
believing.
knew
Like
there
this
were
is
other things.
fantastic. Well, I guess in my mind, like I knew there were other things, but I always thought, well, these are like the crazy heretics. But then like hearing like, no, he sounds like because he's talking about like God being like all loving and like this sounds like what the Bible is like actually talking about. But again, talking about the Bible, it's like it's kind of said as a joke, but it's like it's true. Like the Bible says a lot of things because it really does. Like like I said, that's why there's so many different denominations of Christian, because literally every single denomination of Christian can point to the Bible to say why they're right. Or it's the
Yeah.
way I like to put it. Like you can't even like define Christianity like succinctly. Like if you ask 100 different Christians, what is Christianity? You get like 300 different answers. And I've tried this on multiple occasions. So anyway, so finally I start deconstructing like literally everything. And again, you can go back to our old podcast to listen to, and I'm sure it's the stuff we'll get into later. So basically so my faith timeline, I went from like fundamentalist Calvinist to, I guess, in Christianity, my final form, as it were. I was a universalist panentheist.
Yeah.
And it was at that time in 20, so now we're up to 2021. I think like the heavy deconstruction probably started around like 2018, 2019, something like that. And a big thing for me, like, Matt was talking about that experience with his wife working at this church we were going
You
to.
almost said it. I saw you almost say it.
I did. I felt it. Like I said, we're going to talk about them later. I might as well.
It just feels like bashing for some reason to me right now to say it. I don't.
Yeah, that's true. Like I said, they'll get theirs later. Well, yeah, we'll save it.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Aaron. But that was actually a big part of me, because like at the time where she was working there, like I totally had this church like completely up on a pedestal. I was like, this church is like, it's amazing. This is totally vital. I can't imagine going anywhere else. Like,
Yeah.
I would not be where I am if it weren't for this church and my faith and all that. So that was a big thing that kind of broke that, view that I had of it. So I guess that was maybe one of the first things that really started getting my mind more open to like thinking other things. I don't know if that was my actual full deconstruction maybe started later, but that was maybe what kind of allowed for it, I guess. So sorry, Aaron, but thank you for going through that. It was good for me, though I like hated the shit out of it at the time. But yeah, I can't. Yeah, I mean, I make light of it, but yeah, I can't imagine going through that. It's just, I still feel terrible that you went through all that. But anyway, oh, she says welcome. Oh, she's so nice. Um, so now I'm a universalist panentheist, and then this is probably one of the biggest things in my life that happened. Was like February 2021, I'm diagnosed with cancer. So if anyone noticed, like at certain angles, like if you're noticing, like it looks like a big chunk of my head is missing, it's because a big chunk of my head is missing. So it was melanoma of the scalp. Um, people know anything about melanoma, like it's super nasty. I mean, most people, I think, when they hear skin cancer, they're like, it's just skin cancer. But there's like, I think like three different kinds. Like, yeah, Aaron says, honestly, sometimes I think you and Matt took it harder. Maybe. I mean, I did take it pretty hard. So I guess I'm glad if I took it harder than you, Aaron. Um, so anyway, so yeah, diagnosed with cancer. And again, I can get more into this story later, but it ended up spreading like like it was stage 4. So if anyone knows anything about like stage 4 melanoma, like that's like pretty much death sentence, at least until recently, because science. so so I got diagnosed in February, and by June it had spread. Like it started here on my head. It spread all throughout my abdomen, including one little tumor down in my left leg. But it was in both lungs, and we found out in July it was actually in my heart. So basically, for the summer of 2021, I was like, okay, I'm gonna die. Like that's just where my head was. So
You didn't show it much.
well, see, I have this, you can call it a blessing or a curse. Like sometimes things just have a hard time really sinking in, especially like big picture type stuff. I mean, I definitely was like feeling it and was like super anxious about it
Yeah.
a lot of times, but it was literally, I guess it kind of helped that I was like having just like so many like doctor's appointments and stuff. So me, it was literally just day to day, just like, okay, time to go to the doctor, do what they tell me to do. Okay, we're doing a thing. Like, Yeah, as Sarah says, yeah, I express myself online. Yeah, very much. That was like extremely therapeutic for me. And I will say, like, for like when I was like sharing, going through like having cancer online, as Sarah says, like, it was survival mode, literal. Yes,
Yeah.
quite literal survival mode.
You're like, I'll feel this later.
Yeah, and I'm still feeling it now. Like, but so it, like, spoiler alert, I didn't die. Um,
Ruined
as
it.
you, as you may have noticed. So, but speaking of like sharing myself online, like I will say, like, I still like go back through like all my posts. Like, I still read all the comments that people left me. I even look at all the different reactions, like the likes, the hearts, the cares, everything. It still means like so much to me, like the way people like reached out and supported, and even in like real life tangible ways. Like, we had, like, again, I'll get into this part of the story probably later, but like, we were moving at the time. I'd also was looking for a new job because I'd lost my job because of COVID, like when that hit, and then having to like downsize our house and move, and yeah, so many people helping me in so many ways that I just cannot be thankful enough for. So, but yeah, so like I said, so summer 2021 was my summer of I'm dying. But then it turned out in September, oh, all the cancer's just gone now because like they switched up my treatment to something like more aggressive once they found it in my heart. But the kind of the funny thing was the way like things like when they switched the treatment and when scans were, they still aren't exactly sure what exactly did it, whether it was the immunotherapy I was already on or the aggressive chemo they switched me to. But either way, like, I'm like, okay, mid July, like it's everywhere, and then when they scan me again in September, like literally everything is just gone. So I'm like, what the fuck? And I'm like, so I'm not dying now, and I honestly at the time I don't remember when exactly like the change happened where I was no longer considering myself a Christian, but I want to say it was before going into remission because I
Yeah.
remember one of the times I was in the hospital. Um, and they had like a chaplain lady or something. It was at the Christ Hospital here in Cincinnati, so a Catholic hospital. So they had like she was supposed to be like an either like interfaith or non-faith specific, whatever, like chaplain or something going around. And I just remember her coming to my room. It's like, oh, just come around see if anyone like would want like prayer or something. And I just remember going, no, not really feeling it. And then I was like, that's weird and different because I used to be all about that. So, so I think it was just so the way I put it is having cancer led to me being an atheist, but not in the same way that most people would think. Kind of similar to how having cancer also led to me being bald because I used to have hair, but not in the same way. Because like what the hair thing was, like, yes, I did have chemo, but I actually didn't lose any hair during chemo. I only had like 2 rounds and yeah, no hair loss. It was mostly just because the tumor was on my head and with surgery and like with that whole spot, like no hair is growing back anyway. So like, might as well just shave the whole thing. So with me losing my faith and like eventually becoming atheist, I think it was just more just on the backdrop of thinking I'm going to die and just taking a hard look at what I really believe and like just forcing myself to like just be completely honest with myself. Okay, what do I actually believe? So yeah, like I said, it was September of 21 is when I went into remission. I don't think I really considered myself atheist for like another like month and a half after that. But it was really more just like over that period of time, just kind of being like, okay, I'm not dying now. Like, okay, what? Like I said, I was completely um, in that headspace of like, this is it. So, oh, and Sarah says, oh, thanks for coming, Sarah. Yeah. Um, but yeah, definitely catch the rest later, and hope to see you next time too.
Thank
But
you for saying thank you. I really
yeah,
appreciate that.
yeah, you're very welcome. So,
Hmm.
um, so yeah, so just coming to that, like coming from that headspace, just being like, okay, yeah, what do I really believe? Um, and then, yeah, just the whole thing of like, okay, well, I thought I was dying. I thought this was going to be it. So like mentally, like I wasn't. I was just like, okay, well, as far as like big picture, like what am I going to do next in life? Like that just wasn't like part of my thinking at all. So it was just okay. Now I am going to continue living. Okay, so what now? So it was just kind of okay. Well, I kind of already made my mind kind of a blank slate for things. So it's like, well, let's just kind of look at explore some things I hadn't really explored before. And I don't even know if I necessarily consciously started seeking out things or if it was just like the YouTube algorithm fairies who were started like putting stuff on my feed like, oh, now all of a sudden I'm watching like debates between like Christopher Hitchens and William Lane Craig and thinking,
Oh
oh,
my
this would be
goodness.
interesting. And
Whoa, he
then
got owned.
and then but I found myself like just sort of like just like subconsciously and like without even really thinking about it like siding with the atheist in like so many of these debates. I'm like, well, that's weird.
Yeah, like they have the better argument.
Yeah, because like my whole life being told by like people in the church and like apologists and whatever, like, oh, atheists have no answers for all of this stuff, and then but then once I actually started listening to, they're like, atheists have no answers. Also, by the way, don't listen to atheists. So then I'm like, well, I'm gonna actually listen to them just to see what they have to say because I'm curious. I'm like, oh, they're making good points. And long story short, now I'm an atheist. But
But would you say that like you're finding your peace with death, ironically, made you an atheist? Not solely, but like making your peace with the world and with yourself, facing death was it had a deconstructive bend to it.
yeah, I mean, like I said, honestly, looking back on it, like with like the it's still kind of hard for me to really nail down a timeline as far as
Hmm.
like when certain things in my mind shifted. But yeah, I mean, it was yeah, like I said, just that whole experience just kind of turned my mind, like going from me thinking this is it and then finding out it's not, like that. Just like I say, yeah, just kind of turned my mind into like blank slate mode. It's like, oh, this almost feels like I got like a redo on life now. So it's like because that's been one of the biggest things for me, like coming out of it is because like this is a whole thing of like because like Christianity and like my faith like that just was who I am, who I was. Like it was my identity. Like that was like my view of reality, my view of the world, my view of myself. My decision making was all about how does this fit with God? Like what does God want for my life? And realizing, oh, there is no God to kind of base things on or check in with or to try to make sure is okay with my decisions or like trying to figure out what he wants me to do or
It's like that's why it was so hard to get answers.
yeah, because honestly, if I could point to like one specific issue that really led to me losing my faith, it was if people are familiar with the concept of divine hiddenness. Just the
Oh
whole
yeah.
thing. Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. Everyone actually is familiar with divine hiddenness, whether you're aware of it or not. But and this is something I can get into more later, but for another save that for another episode. But what I want to ask now, like this is something before we got on, I was talking with Matt about what we're going to talk about tonight, and I said there was a question I wanted to ask you. I
Oh yeah.
realized for some reason I've never actually asked you this before. So I was talking about how like your experience, I guess more specifically with your wife's experience being working for the church and then getting fired and that whole thing, and like how big of a deal that was like for me and my deconstruction. So, so that's so as my friend and like for people who don't know, like me and Matt, like we've been friends since early 2000s. I don't even remember. So yeah, we go way back. And it seems like our faith journeys, whether it's been like from the deconstruction and then even before deconstruction, like it seemed like we were always at least like kind of relatively in sync with like where we were at. So what I want to ask you is like, was my whole experience of like having cancer, and it being as bad as it was, and then surviving, like, did that have any kind of effect on your whole like opinion of faith and any of that? It's okay if it didn't. I was just curious.
It was part of it, but it wasn't really a catalyst for anything.
Hmm.
I don't know if I've ever really reflected on that.
Yeah, because it felt like you were probably already pretty far along on whatever you were doing at that time anyway. But yeah.
I I was so I'm remembering thinking that it was weird that I wasn't really praying for you to get better.
Ooh. You
And
weren't praying for me? How dare you?
no, and it wasn't because at the time it was like
It's all right. You were there for me in actual, tangible, practical ways. So
well at the time I didn't pray because I didn't see the point because God already knew. And like I and it was on my mind a lot. It wasn't like saying it out loud and like I definitely wanted you to get better.
well, that's
And
good.
like, I did not want it was freaking me out. Like I did not want you to die like at all. Of course, but it was like
I appreciate that.
and I knew that God knew that. And so I was like I don't need to say it over and over again out loud in a certain way because it's already true. That doesn't make it more true. And I was kind of like it. Yeah, I didn't think it made much of a difference to do it
Hmm.
externally. And the way I
Yeah.
reconciled that with the prayer stuff and the things that happened in the prayer tent on at man camp was that I wasn't sure if prayer was so much a cause for something to happen or if it was people being aware when it worked. Was it people being aware of what was going to happen anyway and we were just participating in the unfolding of it,
Hmm.
not really making it happen? And I think that's still worthwhile to participate in the things that are coming. Like if that's what it is, if it is partly some kind of like a perception now of the future in some way.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, but I wasn't on board anymore with the idea of like praying makes things happen because it just
Yeah.
then like God won't do it unless we ask a lot and well yeah he
Yeah.
sounds like a jerk. And if that's not why, then is it just like, are we making it happen? Like the more we do it, or
Yeah. I definitely want to do an episode on prayer. That's because
oh yeah,
honestly,
I
sorry.
think you didn't know I had more to say. um, I it helped solidify where I was headed.
Oh,
You going through all that,
well, you're welcome then.
and it really validated what I was feeling about. Like I felt like I had more peace walking away from things. Like I felt like the kind of like internal peace I was chasing, and that it seemed like the Bible was the whole like kingdom of heaven within the whole wellspring of. I felt like I found that walking away from the faith,
Hmm.
like realizing that what I was looking for
Yeah.
wasn't outside anywhere to be chased after. Like I
Hmm.
had it, and
Nice.
some of the faith things were in the way of that, and
Yeah.
seeing you like find that out and like watching you I don't know, heck, find a weird kind of contentment almost with what was happening.
Hmm.
Um, yeah,
Weird contentment. Yeah. That's a good way to describe it.
and, your response to when people came over to pray for you in the spiritual warfare way, and you were just kind of like,
Oh yeah.
guys,
Yeah, yeah, that's
this
something else I
isn't too much
definitely.
for me anymore, is it?
Yeah, that's something like I talked about in the podcast. Like if like yeah, people want again encourage people to check out the Three Beer Gospel podcast we did. Episode 4 was the one where I really talked a lot about the whole like cancer experience. And yeah, one of the things that like Matt's talking about. I think this was before we found out it was like really bad. It was probably like in May or something of that year. Like I had some friends like they wanted to like come over to the house and like pray for me. Okay, it was one friend, another guy I think I'd met once who was part of the whole like prayer group for like the man camp and mash, and then another guy I just didn't know because why not, you know? But yeah, it was that was one of the biggest things for me that really showed me, okay, this is really not where I'm at anymore. As far as like this whole like prayer thing, especially like because all the things they were doing, like even as little as like a year before that, I would have been like completely like on board with. I was completely where I was at. But yeah, just the things they were having me pray, and like I said, we can get more of that later. But
Yeah,
but yeah, so
that would be a
but for
good one.
anyone who's curious, like you know, a lot of the like tropes for like people who become atheists, especially for someone who's like gone through like serious illness or some other sort of like trauma or tragedy or whatever in their life, it's like, well, you're just angry at God. Like I can say like completely honestly, like I have never been angry at God a day in my life, even through all that, because like growing up super fundamentalist first, I thought I wasn't allowed to be, and then going through like the more like friendly evangelical, like more charismatic, whatever thing. Oh, there's actually, and then through deconstruction, you're like, oh, there's actually no reason to be angry at God at anything because He's just all love, and anything that's bad is something else, you know. And then just to now not believing that any God exists to be angry at. So like I said, the whole cancer thing, like I did not become an atheist because I had cancer and I was like mad at God, like, oh, there's no God because my life sucks, you know. Yeah, that was never a thing. But I guess, and this is the thing that people, I guess, find particularly interesting about my story is like it wasn't until I was seemingly miraculously healed, which it's so funny that like God's miraculous healings in my life just happened to coincide with treatments for my particular kind of cancer just getting way better just in the past few years. So that was really one of the things for me because people kept telling me, "Oh, God just so obviously loves you so much. He healed you. Like, look what God did for you." But all I could think was, what about all the other people who died of the same damn thing that I had? I mean, not to mention the people who just die of like whatever the hell else every day. Like, I just could not view myself as that special.
Does God not love them? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just speaking just my personal feelings, like I have an aunt and an uncle who died of cancer. I got a friend from high school who died of cancer when he was like 30. You know, in my elementary school, there was a little girl like she was like kindergarten or third grade or something like that, died of leukemia. Like, so that's the thing that got me like. And again, this is something I want to get into like later episodes. Like I have one of the things that really caused me to just completely like just drop faith altogether was like even in the like the more progressive Christian like deconstruction community, like people would say all these things. Well, God is really like this. You don't like people keep reading the Bible like this, but that's the wrong way to read it. And like only these parts of the Bible, that's really the true picture of God. It's like the thing I just kept asking people when they would give me these views, like, well, this is what I think, and like I found like no one really had a good answer for. It was like I would just keep asking, how do you know? And it always just came down to, well, it's essentially this is just what I choose to believe.
Yeah, or you have to have
Yeah,
faith. Like
yeah.
there's
Well, you
no,
just have to have faith. It's like, well, okay, I don't. So,
and that doesn't make it true.
mhm,
Like you can have total faith and conviction of something that's false, but it doesn't make it true.
right. Yeah. So, because what bugged me was like, because when it would be something like my healing, people would say, "Oh, that's obviously God." But then when I would ask about all the people who died, then all of a sudden God's mysterious.
Hmm.
I'm like that. No, that just seems like, because the more I kept thinking about like different Christian apologetics or explanations, or even now, like as I'm looking at things, the phrase that keeps coming to my mind over and over and over again is ad hoc. It's like they're just trying to keep it completely unfalsifiable. Like they have like it just becomes, especially with the whole like with deconstruction and like progressive Christianity, it just became like so malleable that like it could be whatever you wanted it to be. And I eventually got to the point where it's like, okay, well, it can if it can mean whatever you want it to mean, then it doesn't actually mean anything.
Yeah.
So, and then people say, well, you can still be a Christian, but you don't got to hold on to this part, or you don't got to hold on to like the Bible, you don't got to hold on to like these views of hell or these views of heaven or like whatever. But eventually, like I got to the point where like essentially, like there were people saying like no matter what it was, apparently I didn't need to hold on to it. So I was like, okay, I'll just try not holding on to any of it. And so the way I put it is like, so I do refer to myself as an atheist mostly just for the expediency, even though like you say atheist and a lot of people don't even necessarily know what it means. Maybe that could be like another episode we actually
Yeah.
unpack what do we mean by atheist? What do most people actually mean by atheist when they use it? But yeah, so like that's just kind of where I landed. You made like I even got the T-shirt. This is one of my favorite quotes. Speaking of like afterlife and you know what do we think? Because like with like contemplating death and like just realizing like okay, I really have no reason. I'm not saying. I mean, I'm not saying there is no afterlife. I'm just saying I have no reason to believe there is. So I'm just going to focus on this one. So
If if anybody
say
if anybody can't see the video, if we put this out as a
oh
podcast, it says happy atheist. I believe in life before death.
yes, life before death, as in the only life I can actually verify that I will ever have, I'm going to have it now. So thank you, Matt. Good looking
Life
out.
now, please.
So the way I put it is like I'm not. I became an atheist because I became unconvinced that a God exists,
Hmm.
and I just have yet to be reconvinced. Like I said, if something happens when I'm dying, like I am perfectly open to being pleasantly surprised someday, or if God ever does show up to like prove Himself, or like, oh, okay, cool, you're here, you exist, awesome. Like until then, I'm like, if there is a God who exists and wants me to get to know Him and is powerful enough for me to know Him, and if it's like consequential, especially when it comes to like the fate of my eternal soul, whether or not I know Him, then I would have to believe that He's going to make that happen. And the fact that He hasn't really makes me not sure at all that He's there. Like,
Would you say that so hypothetically you find out in the future something happens and you're like, oh, there's a God because facts. And do you think it's safe to say that you would it would that God would still be different than the Bible God? Like the Bible God still can't be a clear picture of that God.
yeah, yeah. I mean, people say like, I guess we'll get into a little bit of this now. Like, as far as like, what does atheist mean? Like, it does not necessarily mean saying there is no God. Like like people, you might call that positive atheism. For some people, like to me, really all it takes to consider yourself an atheist is just to not have a belief in God. So it's like you can be agnostic and atheist at the same time. Like those are not mutually exclusive. Like most
Hmm.
atheists are actually agnostic atheists. But I would so I so most people would say, okay, atheism just means I don't have a belief in a God. I go to the point of saying I actually do believe there is no God. I don't claim to know. I'm just saying if I'm completely honest with myself, I do believe that no God exists because again, this is something we can get into more later, but I just don't have any reason to. But when it comes to like the God of the Bible, that one I'm pretty confident in saying does not exist.
Or at least just
Yeah.
as a whole. Like
Hmm.
parts of it could be real, not real. That's not what I mean.
Yeah, but I mean, if
Yeah,
I mean,
collectively,
I
yeah, it's
mean, again, this is
not clear.
another issue. Like there isn't even. a God of the Bible. There are so many different varying, sometimes contradictory.
And one of them is Baal. That yeah, one of them
Uh-huh.
is the in the Old Testament, like really old part of the Old Testament. They just took stories about Baal and were like, I mean Yahweh.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, this is like so many episode ideas already. So, but speaking of, I mean, we're on for about an hour and a half now. So I
Yeah.
think this would be a good time to say, well, what do we want this show to be? Like I said, before we were like deconstructing Christians, and then we're like, well, now we're atheists. What the fuck do we do now? So what the fuck do we do now, Matt?
I think that's all right. So we think people are awesome, even if we can't always be around them because they also suck.
A lot of people are awesome.
What'd you say?
Like a lot of people are awesome.
Okay, as a whole, I think
Yeah.
people are
Mhm.
are awesome.
Also, I will say this is maybe I wouldn't say a divergence of ours. I will say like at least where we're at right now, you're probably still a lot nicer than I am when it comes to things like that. But which is good. I'm not saying that's a bad thing at all.
I,
But
I'm very understanding of, or I see now more that like somebody's current experience of reality, I need to roll with that. Um,
yeah, I'm working on that.
and I might think that something is wrong, or I really do think everybody does their best, or the best they think they can do, and sometimes it's not the same thing.
Yeah, definitely true. Yeah,
So
because that's
like,
something like as I was going through
yeah,
like my whole something I wanted to mention earlier. Something as I was going through my whole experience of like having cancer, like I had so many people, especially like when things were looking really bad. You know, like you were saying, like telling me like, oh, you're reacting to this so well, you're being so brave. But like me, like in my mind, it's
did I
like
say brave? Not to cut you off.
I don't remember if you did, but a lot of other people did.
Okay.
But um, but yeah, but in my mind, it's like the what, and I realize this is like not just in this situation, but basically all I ever do really is all that I know how to do.
Hmm.
So for me, like I didn't feel like I was being brave at all. All I felt was like I'm just doing the only thing I know how to do right now. Like if I knew how to be different, then I'd be different, but I don't. So this is just what I'm doing. So, but then realizing about that about myself, kind of back to what you're saying about other people and where they're at, you know, extending that to other people, saying,
Yeah.
oh, this other person who's like maybe like pissing me off or getting on my nerves or doing this thing that I see is like really bad or harmful or whatever, is like they're probably just doing all that they know how to do too.
Yeah. So for this show, I think it's kind of a lot of wrestling with what's left over still from believing, um,
Yeah, yeah.
patterns.
There's still a lot.
Yeah,
Like
like
that for me, it's only been like a little over 2 years. So I mean, there's
yeah.
coming off of. I mean, I guess for me, like I lost faith at 38. I can never remember how old you are, and all I know is you're older than me. So, but
I think I'm 45. I think I'm about to be 46. Let me do the math.
that sounds right.
7, 8, 4.
So,
Yeah,
multiple decades of our life being this, and only just a couple years out. So, yeah, there's still a lot of things still to work
and
through.
I think now that like we don't believe that that stuff is what's best for people or in people's best interest,
Mhm,
just solely because of what it is.
mhm.
Anyway, like like I want to do I want to do what's best for me and what's best for other people, and like what is that best thing? And it's
Yeah,
so like kind of what is real, what is the world? um,
yeah,
how do we play nice with each other and
mhm,
the situation that we're all in?
yeah,
Um, and what like and not playing nice. like forgiving myself for being honest, and
Yeah.
it might be, maybe it was too aggressive, or maybe someone thinks what I said was, I thinks I meant something more offensive by it than I did. Or
Yeah.
okay, I mean, I want to be just. I have realized I have like a long period of masking in my past where I would like try to adapt myself socially to my environment in a way that wasn't healthy, and it was a way to mask autism symptoms. I found out.
Mm.
So like part of this is like me processing out loud who I really am, because I've been
Yeah.
suppressing certain things for so long that like some things I'm realizing now, like certain fidgeting things, like I sometimes flap my hands now, and I'm like, this really helps me. How long ago did I stop doing this? Like I don't remember ever
Mm.
doing this, and it would have been a more natural thing when I was young.
Ah.
Um, so it's just certain little fidgety things.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, kind of seeing where our friendship goes. Because for a long time, like one of the main things we ever talked about was theology,
Yeah.
like beer, theology, and politics. Um,
It used to be a lot more politics.
yeah,
Yeah, I may also like I said, like in my background, I was conservative in like every sense of the word. So
and
uh,
I want to talk to more people. I want to hear other
yeah,
people's experiences of faith, uh,
yeah,
because if there is something, that's how we're gonna. Each person only has their experience of whatever is. So
hmm,
um, the best way to get the best picture, like the more most complete picture, is to hear more people's stories, like the
right.
things that like are described as spiritual or divine, like those experiences. Like, if you had any experiences of that, what is it? How do you categorize it? Because that's at the core of being a human being, whether it's a spiritual thing or not. That's like what's behind all the things that kind of mean something across different cultures, like artwork, um,
Mm,
good
yeah,
stories, good poetry, songs.
mm,
It speaks to something core, and I would like to find out what that core is,
mm, yeah. What makes people tick?
or just experience more of
Yeah,
that core. Even if we can't
yeah,
find out what it is, if it's always something ethereal,
yeah,
just an experience, like something we can't really describe.
yeah. Yeah, and to that end, like I said, like first of all, like I love seeing everyone like in the comments leaving things, but also like I said, we're having a guest next week, but we want to have more guests.
Hmm.
And but the way we're kind of viewing guests, it's like we don't like the way we're planning on doing it. It's not so much like you're a guest, but more like you're just like a third co-host or third and fourth or however many people we end up having
Yeah,
on. Like it's like obviously like when we have like our friend Eric who's going to be on next week. Part of it will definitely be kind of interviewing him, getting to know him. But part of it is like we just want to talk about stuff, and it's like he's just going to be a third member of the conversation, and because that's really what we want. We would like so honestly like it's open to like pretty much anyone who wants to be on, whether you know us or not, whether you're, we, I mean, as much as we would love to have like actual experts and stuff on different topics, but if you're like really like just regular people, like if so, like anyone in the chat, like, Sarah, Jimmy, I mean, love to have Jimmy on sometime, obviously. Um,
and everybody's the expert of their experience,
yes,
and
perfect way to put it. Yeah.
if
And
you've been,
that's what we want. We want
you,
your point
yeah,
of view, your experience. Yeah.
if you are a Christian or you were a Christian,
Mhm.
that's one of the main things that gets taken from you is your experience. Like,
Mhm.
it's explained to you by something else or someone else very often.
Yeah. And I will say, like, that includes, like, even if people who are Christians, like, we are not, anti people being Christian. Like we'd love to have someone who's a Christian. Like I can actually think of several right now. Like if he's watching this guy I know named Keith, who's like actually a minister, like someone I've got to know, like great, like awesome dude. Like I'd love to like talk with people like him or people like him, you know.
And
So
it's not like a it's not a de- I don't think we're going to have a debate situation at any point.
no, no, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. I'm definitely not interested in debates. I'm just more like I think I could even find something in common with someone who still is like incredibly fundamentalist. I mean, probably would it probably mostly like we probably have a shared, if I'm perfectly honest, shared annoyance with some more like progressive Christianity at this point. But then I could talk with some like progressive Christians and share like annoyance at super fundamentalist. So
That
you
would be
know,
funny. That would be funny to see an atheist and a conservative Christian both shit all over progressive Christians.
I've seen that happen. If you're familiar with the YouTube channel Pine Creek,
No,
he's
no.
he's done that a few times. He'll like be in these like big like group chats with like Calvinists and fundamentalists, and like him and a Calvinist will like team up to like talk shit about the progressive Christian. It's hilarious,
That's funny.
but but yeah. So yeah, so that's what we want this to be is like. I mean, like so we're not going to have guests every week, honest, obviously, but that's really like the way. Like we said, this is kind of a continuation of the podcast we had before. We're really like how that started is. I mean, maybe it sounds cliche, maybe like the way a lot of things like this starts. Like, but it's really like me and Matt. We were just friends, and we'd be hanging out, just talking about this stuff anyway. And we were wanting to include more people in on our conversation, so we tried the more like IRL way of like inviting people to come hang out with us at a bar or something, but it just never worked out. And then other people in our lives were like, "When are you two just going to start a podcast?" And we're like, "Oh, well." And then at the time, like we said, it was during the pandemic. We were bored, white, and opinionated, so
Why not?
podcast was the natural thing to do.
There's a market for that.
Yeah. So, and then now, like, we're on here, like, with you lovely people, or according to here, lovely person who is still watching, whoever you are. Thank you very much.
We did go long.
Get used to that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like, with this being our first time back after a couple of years, we had a lot of stuff to say. So we'll try to be a little more focused in future episodes, but like we said that before, and then would have podcasts that were like 3 hours long. So, but yeah, I'm real excited about this. Yeah, I mean, this is already a lot of fun. So also mostly because I know I'm not going to have to go back and do like hours of editing on this, if I'm honest.
Hey, if people comment on the, you can comment on the playback, right?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
and then if you comment while you're watching it, it'll actually also give the timestamp.
Yeah.
At least on Facebook. I don't know how it does. I forget if it does that on YouTube or not. But yeah.
So we'll respond to comments that come in on the playback.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, in the future, like I said, like and in future episodes, even if like it's not something we're having a guest on, like if people just want to jump on, like I could send a link out and put that in the comments, and people can just click on the link and join in if they want to chat too. But yeah. Well, any other things you're wanting to talk about, Matt? Or
I don't think so. Oh, my finger's doing better.
oh yeah.
I would show it, but it's gross. I mean, it's mostly healed now, but there's still like the black stitching thread in there.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
It looks like a horror show. But yeah,
Cool.
that was
Well,
bad
I'm
for a
glad.
minute.
Yeah. Yeah, I just get a text from Matt. He's like, I'm in the ER, my finger, getting the stitches. I'm like,
Yeah.
cool.
I might have cut it to the bone. My fingernail at least stopped it if my bone didn't.
Yeah, good times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know that it's how we always. It's kind of how we always ended the old ones too. Is we just kind of tapered off and ended it with like a yep.
We're like, is that it? I think that's it. Okay, but it was nice because we had like outro music to throw in. That's something I'll work on. Like I'm because I loved like the intro music that we had for the podcast. We'll definitely want to keep that, but I just need to find a way to actually bring that in to the live stream. Like so, and who
Yeah,
knows what in the future we'll figure out a way to do this where we can actually set it up to where we're actually in person together. Might be able to figure that out sometime too. And
yeah. I think it gets crazier when we're in person, or at least we giggle a lot more. There's a lot more
yeah,
laughter.
if you go back like the in the podcast episodes 2 and 3, we did like we just recorded like this in a video chat, and those were actually like first of all, I think those were some of our shortest recordings by
Yeah.
far. But yeah, it's like I said, I don't think either was necessarily better or worse, but yeah, it was definitely different when we were in person. So we'll see how that goes. But
It'll be good times.
indeed.
We
So
have a
yeah,
cool logo
so
that I made, so we'll probably get stickers or something at some point.
yeah, yeah.
Well,
Like I
for
said,
sure.
yeah, just
If
like
there's enough people who want them, like,
mhm. Yeah,
yeah.
like we may set up like I don't know if this will get to the point where we're setting up like a Patreon or something like that, but even that would just be put towards like getting more gear because like right now, I mean, I'd like to have a better laptop to be running this on where I could like plug in like extra monitors. Because part of what we're wanting to do is, speaking of this church that we used to go to, one of the things we're
Mhm.
definitely wanting to do is some like reactions to like some of their sermons or even like just other stuff. Like I'd love to like maybe one episode is like we're just scrolling through like apologetics on TikTok and just like
Oh no,
watching
that
the
yes,
yeah. So yeah, counter apologetics is just something I've been like really into in the past couple of years. So,
it's
but yeah,
crazy. Not it's not hard.
yeah, like not at all. Yeah, but and but yeah, like I said, if so, again, thanks for the 2 people still on, whoever you are. We love you very much,
Hello, two people.
and all the other people who were on at other times or who are watching this now later. So, but yeah, like I said, uh, come back next week, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 Central, 6 Mountain,
Look at you.
and then 5 Pacific, which will be the time zone that our next guest will be coming from. Our
His
good
name is
buddy,
Eric Barnes.
yes, good buddy of ours. He lives out in California. He does stand-up comedy, and like he's had his own podcast. He's like been an announcer and host at like wrestling gigs and stuff. Like
He's done some acting.
yeah, he. You may have he was in a Super Bowl commercial back. I think it was when the Ravens and 49ers, which is apparently a Super Bowl matchup we may see again this year. But so
Not the
he was
best.
also he was in a Geico commercial at another point. But anyway, we'll hear more about him next week. But yeah, really super looking forward to that. First of all, also like I said, we've been wanting to have him on as a guest, going back to the podcast days. So glad this is finally happening. So,
Yeah,
but yeah, like I said, if you're someone who wants to be on the show too, just like let us know. Yeah, we have like I said, there's a Facebook page. We have a Gmail address, so you probably find that through. I forget what I made it. I want to say it's the humanitylive@gmail.com,
I
but
think that's right.
yeah. So, but yeah, there's also the YouTube channel where this is. So yeah, so reach out to us like through Facebook or YouTube, Gmail or wherever, and whether you want to be on or not, like we just love hearing from people. If there's anything that you're curious about and you want us to talk about, we'd be open to that too. So
Yeah, yeah, that would be good.
yeah, because we might run out of ideas. So the more you can help. All right. So are we going to have a way to like sign off on this or
Hmm. I don't know. We did the stuff. We did the things with the stuff for the people.
like people, did we do the things with the stuff for you? Do you feel like things and stuff have been done for you?
I don't know.
Uh,
Maybe, I don't know. Pretty much everything that's been an intro had just happened. Like, so it feels weird to come up with something. I don't know. Maybe something will be said at some point, and that'll be a new thing.
all right. Well, so I guess that'll have to do for now, everybody. So
Bye, people.
Bye. Yeah, see you again next week with our friend Eric Barnes. Tune in. It'll be awesome. All right. Have a good night, everybody.